Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Ultiworld senior editor, Keith Rayner. It is Wednesday, March 22nd. We're getting down to the end of the college regular season. Just 2 weekends of games left. The bid watch hangs in the balance. And we've got the Northwest Challenge coming up this weekend. A particularly important tournament in the women's division. Basically the last big D1 women's tournament of the year. So we'll discuss that later, make our picks. Keith, how are things?
Better than they were last week. The Charlie knows this, but the listeners don't. But my household had a bout of COVID come through, so that was fun. There are 5 of us here, including folks who are at risk. So it was a good time. Everybody just battened down the hatches. We pretty much just holed up. But everybody's on the right side of things now. Everybody's back at work/school. So much brighter days at this point, and it's starting to warm up. Though we're actually getting some nice weather. You can go outside and stuff. So
yeah, that's true.
All in all, good reasons to be optimistic.
Yeah, I feel like the COVID's been going around a little bit again. It's just anecdotally, but I'm glad everyone's okay, Keith.
Me too. It's not the most fun experience, but it also, like, with the way it goes now, I feel like the entire experience feels a little bit like just getting sick now instead of feeling like it's this, earth shattering, life altering deal, which is nice to be at that point. And
that's
maybe what
goal.
We're just dealing with in the future.
Right. That's the end goal. All right. So today we're going to do a little mailbag. It's been a while since we've done one, and we're coming towards the end of the regular season here, so thought it'd be a good time to.
This might be our first mailbag of 2023.
That is possible.
I think it might be.
We got a lot of different concepts here, and so Keith, I'll let you go first. This was your idea, so you can make the first selection.
All right. First one. How about just a little bid predicting here?
Okay.
I know this has been something Jen has been watching. Jen has kept a clear eye on the Southwest. And between the Southwest D1 men's and women's divisions, are you over or under 5.5 bids for the division? They currently have 6, 3 in both men's and women's combined. But some teams right around the line. UC San Diego, literally the last team in, according to FrisbeeRankings.com right now, of the strength bids in the women's division. And UCLA also near the bubble in the men's division. What do you think? Southwest going to get 6 or more, or are we looking at an under?
Oh, man. UCLA, they're in kind of a precarious spot because they're playing Westerns this weekend, and the field is fairly weak. It's them and Santa Cruz, and then a lot of teams that are not at that level. Now, in theory, this is the kind of the right spot to be in if you're UCLA, because you go out there, you take care of business against lower ranked teams. Algorithm tends to like that. My concern is that they have a slip-up game. How many games have they played? They've already played 23 games, and they're about 60, almost 70 points clear of the last bid spot. I think they're going to be okay. So then it really comes down to the women's division. Is UCSD going to hang on to their spot or not? I'm just looking like who's going to take the spot away from them. And I'm not sure that I see that team. You know what? I'm going to say over, Keith. I think they're going to keep the 3-3.
The UC San Diego women, the women's division is where I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they're done for the year, but they are connected to some teams that'll be at Northwest Challenge. And interestingly, they're connected to both Carleton and Colorado in games that they lost by gigantic margins. So if those teams gain rankings points, we might get to blowout eligible territory. They're like really close on that front. So, that could change some of the math here.
The thing is, those games are hardly impacting their ranking right now.
Right. But when you're right near the border, it's doesn't take much, to get you in a more.
If they go to blowout eligible, it's actually beneficial for UCLA
Right.
is not, or
Exactly.
for UCSD. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a definite possibility. SUNY Binghamton's playing this weekend. They're just 2 spots out. So they have a chance, but it could be dicey for them if they're not playing any high ranked teams. So they pretty much need to win handily all their games this weekend. So I always think that's actually a little bit tougher challenge than it looks like. They do have Wellesley, who's 24 at the tournament, but Western Washington, they're going to be at Northwest Challenge. They're 27. They have a shot, but you're right that it's kind of hard to find a team that you feel like, all right, this team is a really dangerous team to take it away from UC San Diego. So I think I would bet with you and say that they're going to get the 6. It's a little strange to see a team in such a precarious position and be confident, but just not clear who's going to take that bid from UC San Diego.
I mean, like Binghamton, they got a tournament coming up, right? I mean, they're only 8 games. Yeah,
Binghamton has a tournament this weekend. I'm going to be at that tournament. They're in my pool, in fact. But they
Keith, your team could decide the fate of UCSD in the Southwest.
Yeah, I've always wanted to have the power to take a bid from
insanely
the
aggressively. Only your 7 best players the whole game.
No, what? No, I should do the opposite. In theory, if my goal is to have the Metro East get an extra bid and take one from the Southwest.
Oh yeah, you want to tank.
I want to tank.
I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking
I want to lose by just enough to not get blown out, right? That would be the optimal outcome rankings wise.
I think that's right.
I don't plan on gaming the system in that way. I want the reps like it's a good team more than anything else, but it is a weird situation to be in. But I think that it can be hard to go to these like mid-level tournaments and not have that one game where you play close, especially if there's any like weather abnormalities that like tend to tighten up games like wind or rain. So I would not bet necessarily that Binghamton's going to gain a lot of rankings points going to a tournament without very many other high ranked teams.
All right, let's move on here. Let's see. We'll stay with college for now. This one comes from Ryan. Don't know if it's been asked before, but which of these teams has been more dominant and why? Oregon Fugue of the early 2010s or UNC Pleiades of the early 2020s?
Interesting. These are kind of 2 different types of dominance. North Carolina has like a high concentration, back-to-back titles, 3 straight years in semifinals, but not a ton of longevity. I mean, especially when you account for the fact that 2 of those titles came 6 months apart rather than a traditional year apart and with extended eligibility, but they've been so good during the course of that run. I mean, they haven't lost a sanctioned game in years. Even the best Oregon teams had the one slip up. In 2010, they lost to Wisconsin, I think at Centex maybe. And then 2013, another title year for Oregon. They lost 1 game to UBC at regionals. Now they blasted UBC 15-4 at nationals. So I think that you could kind of wipe that from the slate, but there's a big difference between being undefeated and having 1 loss. Now Oregon had a run with 3 titles from 2010 to 2015. They were in the finals for 2 of the non-title years and in the semifinals for the other year. So I think on balance, I'd have to give it to Oregon for the sustained success. Being a title contending team for 6 straight seasons, 5 of which you reached the finals and 3 of which you won a title, and many of them in which you dominated the field. I mean, one of those years, they didn't give up double digits in nationals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is remarkable stuff. So I think I would side with Fugue, but North Carolina is on the trend, right? If they were to perform at the level that they're performing now for another season or 2, then you start to think about Pleiades as having the better run, even if it's not quite as long. Even if they don't get to 6 seasons, if they had a title this year, and now you're talking about 3 titles in 4 years and a semifinal appearance. They were in quarters in 2018.
Asterisk.
Oh, you're gonna throw the asterisk on it. Okay.
Too much eligibility.
There's a lot of eligibility.
Team. You look at the players on this team, and you're like, these players have been in college for like 20 years. I mean, I'm mostly kidding here, but
only kind of. I mean, it does feel like we've been watching Alex Barnett be this good for a long time, and Ellie Youngst. Yeah,
but I mean, on the other hand, they those same players would have had opportunities to win a title in 2020.
Fair.
And
they did have a
they
season
were
taken
the
away.
favorite in 2020. And then they didn't get the chance, right? That was the big UNC Carleton, showdown year. And we didn't really end up getting it until we sort of got it in the semifinals of 2021 Winter Nationals. So I guess the thing is, yes, they could three-peat, and it wouldn't really be that shocking. And I guess the question is, at that point, they have the same number of titles as the Oregon team from the 2010s. And I would say that they have been more dominant in this stretch than the Oregon Fugue teams were. Now, I just love the style of those teams, like the super aggressive, but they never won back to back.
No,
they won in 10, 13, and 15. Them when they lost to Ohio State in 2014, I think that was their chance to really cement a legacy. And they, Cassie Swafford and Paige Soper said, "Nuh-uh, we're taking that one." It's close. I agree with you. At the moment, you still have to say that it's Oregon because of there's more titles, more time. But I think if UNC wins in May, that they're going to have a really good case.
I guess I also shouldn't exclude 2009 when Oregon also made semifinals. So you get an extra year of longevity. So yeah, right now Oregon, but North Carolina is on pace to have the better run if they can keep it going like this.
Now, question. We've now had 2 back-to-back years of the same 4 teams in college winning the title. UNC in the men's and women's D1 divisions, Oklahoma Christian D3 men's, and then Middlebury D3 women's. Here's my mailbag question to you. What are the odds that we get that exact same 4 teams winning for the 3rd year in a row in May? They are I would say they are all the favorites to win the title right now. Maybe you say UMass in the men's division is the favorite ahead of UNC, but I don't think that Vegas would post it that way despite the loss.
So you're asking what the odds are?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I think I would still need like plus 400 or something.
But think about how low that is for a 4-team championship parlay.
I know. It's low. Let me
so right now Oklahoma Christian is number 2 in the D3 rankings behind fraudulent Connecticut College. The Metro East is in some weird bubble right now in D3 men's, and I don't even really understand how that's happening. But currently, the Metro East has 4 bids. But Oklahoma Christian, I think, is clearly the best team right now in D3 men's. Middlebury comes in undefeated, 7-0 to start their year, and they are like 230 points clear of Wellesley in the D3 women's rankings. I mean, Middlebury really was impressive. I mean, they beat their best win, I guess, is, arguably it's UT Dallas. I don't really know how UT Dallas is quite so high though, so I'm not sure I buy that. Like Wash U, Florida, USC, and mostly by pretty big margins.
They're good.
They're really good. It would be very surprising if they don't win the D3 title this year.
Yeah, they might be the biggest favorite still to me.
I agree.
Probably them, then Pleiades, then Darkside, then OC, maybe.
I think OC had a Darkside.
Maybe OC had a Darkside.
But yeah, it's interesting.
It's plus 400 equates to 20%, right? You have a 20% odds. So that's still quite high. Maybe I don't know if you need, maybe plus 450 feels better to me, but it's tough. We've seen enough good teams in at least probably every division. I guess you could put Wellesley, and given what Carleton Eclipse is doing in the women's division, I still would favor Middlebury if I had to in those situations. But given that there are worthy contenders in seemingly every division, it's lowering the odds for me. But we were talking about this in the preseason, that this could happen. And in fact, it was one of my bold predictions that we would get chalky finals, not exactly this repeat finals, but that the favorites would basically be in all the finals. We wouldn't get any surprises. And that seems maybe a little less likely than it did then.
Yeah. I mean, I think Carleton Eclipse, good team, but I think they're like total dominance this weekend where they gave up like a total of 2 points, I think, at College Southerns. I mean, they're playing like B teams and stuff. I'm not exactly blown away. I think the top ranked team in the USAU rankings they played was Charleston, 121st in the rankings. So, this is just like totally, they were just like by far the best team there. So anyway, let's stay on Pleiades, Keith. Here's a question from Rob. If Pleiades wins a championship this spring, then Alex Hecht will complete the set for the Hecht siblings. I know there have been other winning families, but I'm curious if any have accomplished winning with 3 different schools in 3 different divisions. Because Zoe won with
Oberlin,
that's right. I couldn't remember the school. And of course, Mac won with Brown.
Well, I mean, it can be hard to have 3 siblings who play on championship contending teams. Although, at least the older siblings obviously were big reasons why their teams were championship contenders.
I mean, you could argue that Mac basically like took Brown from being a regionals team to being a national champion team. I mean, he was the guy that like transformed that program.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anybody who like springs to mind for me. I know somebody highlighted the Lories for their U24 wins in our Discord. But just getting to 3 kids is already like a little bit difficult. Like you can think of pairs of siblings who have been good, and you probably get some where they Stubbs were in the same school. So that having to do it at different schools also adds another wrinkle, because I think you're more likely to get, siblings play on the same team or go to the same school,
right, and
then have success at that university
together at the school.
Either together or one after the other.
Sure.
Or maybe they're in 2 different divisions. Maybe they're in men's and women's or whatnot. So like, obviously the young siblings right now have enough rings between the 2 of them, right? Like, but there's not 3 of them and they're at the same school. So I think you'll probably have a tough time finding somebody who fits this exact criteria. But I don't think there's any shortage of like successful ultimate families. In fact, I think it seems to be a pretty common trend that we see siblings. Now we're starting to get into parents and kids, starting to get title winners in across generations. That's what we need to be talking about soon is parent and kid combos.
It's going to continue to become more common.
Oh yeah, we're at that generation, where you're starting to just see more and more players' kids who are playing, like players who played in a competitive setting where, it wasn't just like, oh, my dad played Ultimate or my mom played Ultimate at a little bit in school. And now it's like, this player is a known player who competed in UPA Ultimate. Let's stick in college and we stay on the history note a little bit, like looking forward and looking backward simultaneously. This question comes from T Gills on Twitter. How far back do you have to go before the 2023 college champs, and maybe it'll be easier for us to do the 2022 college champs, in both divisions, the men's and women's, could beat the club champion? So, if you get the 2023 college champ against the 2001 club champion, like who are you taking? How far back do you have to go?
And there? We're talking about the team in its era, right? We're not talking about
we were asking about both, but I don't think you would have to get very far.
No, that's
for
not
them
very
to beat the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah, that's
age
not
players.
Very interesting.
Sorry, Masters. I think this is supposed to be a Pro Masters podcast now, but I can't go there.
Wow. Well, let me look at the list of club champions. I was just looking at the list of college champions, so now I can look at club and think about it a little bit. I have a hard time imagining. So let's take last year UNC Darkside. I have a hard time imagining that team beating any of the teams of the last 20 years. Like there's just no way that team beats like the physical Furious George teams of the 2000s. I'm sorry. It's just the level of like physicality and then just general athleticism, I think was higher. The athleticism factor was higher, like bigger players. And I think by far the UNC team would have like better throwing depth. But I just don't think that would be enough to overcome, just the physical differences between the players. If you go back, like, I don't know, I guess probably to the 90s, like maybe some of those early dog teams, it's just a big difference when you're talking about having like, 4 or 5 elite club level players on your college roster versus having 25 of those players. And I know that in general, as you go back in time, the bench depth really drops off, but the top end talent would be superior to UNC's going way deep, like back into the early 90s or maybe into the 80s. I think it's less clear cut for me in the women's division where, in particular, UNC Pleiades has like 7 like elite club players, including some that are like up near the top of elite club. You're still not going to beat any of the teams from the 2010s. I don't think you're probably going to beat any of the Fury teams in their crazy run. You probably, for me, got to go back to like early 2000s, probably like Lady Godiva times. But it could be even earlier than that.
I think you're underselling the development of athleticism. I get the argument, particularly against the physicality of men's ultimate from 15 years ago. But if you assume we're playing by this time's rules, if rule enforcement looks like it does now,
that's a fair question.
I think those teams are going to get in a lot of trouble. I think there's going to be a lot of cards thrown around. People might not make it through games. There are some guys on Furious and Sockeye who might not make it through a whole game at that rate. I also think that you're going to see these college teams hold at incredibly high rates. I think that's
true. The O-line maybe is just going to get the job done, right?
Yeah, the system level execution is just going to be deadly. I think the type of red zone offenses we're seeing teams operate with now would carve up a lot of top level club teams from 20 years ago. But I do think that the line is probably somewhere around where you're talking about. Now, I do also think we're probably biased by the fact that like we start to get to the point where we didn't watch those teams, like where we didn't see Godiva or Death or Glory's big runs, but we saw Sockeye and Revolver and Fury and Scandal. I'd sign me up to watch Don Colton go up against Prime Sandy Jorgensen though. That would be a good time. Yeah, but that's probably where I'd start to think about it too. I'm not sure that I think they could win in those early 2000s games, but I wouldn't favor them. If that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, I think the argument in favor of the college teams is that we saw Lotus, which was basically Colorado Mama Bird, have a lot of success at club nationals. Now they didn't win, but they were like a very clearly like quarterfinals level team as essentially a college roster in the current times. So if you take that team back 10 years, where do they stand? I don't know. I mean, I think it's really hard, but the top team, the winning team at club nationals is usually extremely good.
But I think that when you're talking about the skill level at the top of the rosters being somewhat, matched up, but then the bench depth, I think that goes for the athleticism too. I think you're going to see teams a little more like training is a little higher level right now.
Oh, training is vastly higher level now.
I think athleticism is probably going to be a little bit higher once you start getting into the bench. So I do think that the stars of yesteryear are still going to be able to go up against the best players now, but I think in general the athleticism is probably favors the newer players. So
I mean, I still think that some of the the best throwers from like 15, 20 years ago are better than the best throwers we have in today's game.
like they had to do more.
Is that a hot take? I mean, I really don't. I think if you go back and you watch the tape and you watch some of the throws that were getting made, like those players are absolutely at the level of today's top throwers. The game has changed a lot, of course. you're not seeing flat-footed 80-yard hucks all that much. There's a few players who do that, but it's pretty rare. I mean, we're seeing a lot more small ball, seeing a lot more grindy offense. And so you're not necessarily seeing that put on display. I'm sure break throwing is vastly better now than it was 10 years ago even. But, just from like raw, like ability to throw people open and hit crazy hucks and stuff, that skill is probably better 10, 15 years ago than it is now. I think in part because of the incentive structure of becoming a better player. You don't need to be able to do that stuff that much these days. So anyway, interesting question. I'm sure we'll get some thoughts on that. Hit us up, deeplook@ultiworld.com, @deeplookpod on Twitter. Let's see.
I'm looking forward to the standard. There's like a crew of old heads in the Discord. I'm looking forward to their vociferous disagreement with this.
Yeah.
They know who they are.
Well, and there may be some older players who are like, yeah, no, we couldn't even hang with these.
That's fair.
We'll see. Which college division is the worst this year? South Least, Metro Least, or Terrible Lakes? Terrible Lakes. I mean,
there's got to be a better hater name for the Great Lakes. I don't know what it is.
I think
Great Fakes.
I think the auto bid is outside the strength range for all 4 divisions for all 3 regions, except for men's D3 Metro East, which quite frankly looks really good. They currently have 4 bids. What do you say, Keith? It's clearly not Metro East this year.
Yeah, right. Metro East Women's carrying. Metro East D1 Women's is carrying right now. Come on, and it sounds like D3 Men's looks good. So it can't be Metro East. If you got to give them their year. If we're gonna have a year, give it to us. South Least is South Central. Is that what that is? Oh no, Southeast.
No, Southeast.
Southeast.
Duh. Keith's just trying to deny that the Southeast could be bad.
Somewhere in my heart still is. I think it's probably the Southeast. At least, like I think in the Great Lakes, you got Michigan, right, in both divisions. And we've seen moments from some of the other teams in D1 Women's, Notre Dame, Chicago. Yeah, the Southeast is like, what else are we excited about in the Southeast besides Georgia men's? Like even Barry
Georgia
men's is having a tough year.
Georgia men's had a terrible Smoky Mountain invite, but now that's another year in which they've had a terrible tournament. But they also looked really good at Florida warm up, where they beat Pittsburgh, they beat Carl. Like they're a legitimate like nationals team.
Okay, I just want to note though that if looking at the probabilistic bid allocations, where it like looks at the depth of the region a little bit more, the Metro East has 1.32 bids in probabilistic women's.
Okay.
The Great Lakes has 0.42. And the Metro East has 0.06.
You mean the Southeast, right?
Not even Southeast, sorry, yes. Has 0.06. Not even a tenth of a bid. Which is tough. Now the Metro East men's has 0.01.
Oh my God.
So 100.
They literally, like, this is fuel to the people who say, take away the Metro East bid.
While the men's Southeast has 0.57 and the men's Great Lakes has 0.51. Mostly because Georgia Tech is a much better second team than Indiana has been in the Great Lakes.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think if you look, especially if you
Metro East men's really dragging it down, and
brutal. If you include D3 and you really look holistically, I think to me it's fairly clear that Southeast is the worst division this year, which is pretty surprising. Pretty surprising.
Yeah,
like in the Metro East, you have legitimate, like Yale and Binghamton in the women's division are, they're not going to win a title, but they're good teams.
And look, a Metro East men's team is the highest ranked team in D3 right now. That's true. Connecticut College. So, and they have the number 4 team too at Rochester. So it's not them. Where even is the Southeast in this list? I don't know what happened, but yeah, I think it's the Southeast right now. Yeah. But it's close. It's close.
What's next, Keith?
All right, how about a straightforward one from Alex? Can any team other than DC or New York win the AUDL this season? And what odds would you give the field? Is the field a dog?
Oh, man.
I think the field's a dog.
To New York DC combo?
Yeah.
Well, it's worth noting that only one of them can make the Final Four.
Fair.
Which I think we're at the point in the AUDL where I'd like to see some, like, they need to make conferences and they need to have the opportunity for, like, for instance, a DC and a New York to make championship weekend. So I think what you do is you would make conferences out of the, what do they call them? The East and the South. And then you do the Central and the West.
Couldn't you do wild cards instead?
You could do wild cards, but the thing is you still have to have some way for the teams to filter into the Final Four. So where do you put the wild cards? Do you, like, randomly allocate them? I think by doing conferences, it's, like, a little bit more clear that you're going to get representation from, sort of both the middle, the West/middle, and then the East. But, I just feel like it's a real bummer that your two best teams are in the same division and that you're guaranteed to not have one of them in your biggest playoff weekend. I don't think that makes sense.
Yeah, you also could obviously reseed would be another strategy, but I hear what you're saying, and I don't know that it's been a consistent issue. So it's not something that looks like, you look at a 1 to 2 year sample size, and I don't think you need to, like, panic about it, but I get it. It will be frustrating to be a DC fan and have your team be good, maybe the second best team in the league, and have to sit on the sidelines over and over again. To answer the actual question, yeah, I mean, I think I think this is a bit of erasure of Raleigh, Colorado. Another team could win. Yes, I do think New York and DC are the favorites. I do think the field having its only one can get there is tough. But DC's new roster looks very, very good. But maybe they're not a dog. I don't know. Yeah, they might be a dog still. The field.
Yeah, it's just hard for me to see who else could get to win. Like, who's the best team in the Central this year? I don't think any of those teams have a chance.
No, I mean, right now I think you got to look at Raleigh, Colorado, Salt Lake, and I don't know if you want to get hyped about LA's new additions.
Come on, don't put Salt Lake in this camp. Come on, no way. Colorado, sure, I guess, but I mean, they got their doors blown off last year.
It was their first time.
Yeah. Classic West team. Oh, West team, so much scoring, so much offense. Gets a championship weekend and get pasted. I don't know. Yes, they have a chance. They have good players. They have a chance. Raleigh, you got to say they have a chance. They've done it before, but they're starting to lose some of their guys. They're losing some of their key defender pieces to retirement. No Saul's gone. Like, those have been pretty important. David Richardson have been important players for them. I'm not saying that they're, incapable of winning. I just think it's going to be a real long shot over whichever team emerges from the East. If only there was any pipeline of talent for
that team to recruit from.
Consider the concept, Keith. You win your division, you get a bye, same as now. And then instead of the 2-3 game being, within the division, you do the 2 seed from the East versus the 3 seed from the South.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be, let's say DC versus Austin. And then you'd have, Atlanta versus who's going to be the third best team? Philly? Maybe.
Sure. I mean, we're just hypothetical here.
Yeah, and then they play in, and you reseed or something so that the top team from the regular season gets the weaker opponent in the next round, and then so like all of the teams, yeah, and then I guess then the winners of each of those games would go through to championship weekend.
I mean, maybe it's just the marketing here, but I think the AUDL likes the rivalry building of you got to go through the team in your area.
imagine if the rivalry game happens at championship weekend instead.
I don't know if it. Well, you like it when it happens at one of the team's home fields. That helps.
Right. It's true. It's true. I mean, you're still going to get that game probably. But you don't know. You don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. All right, well, let's move on. It's time. We're gonna take some more mailbag questions in our subscriber bonus segment out the back. So please join us there, and we will keep it rolling. We got some good ones for the subscribers. Let's take a break. When we come back, time to talk College Ultimate. We got some Northwest Challenge picks to make, and we got some Centex to talk about. And the regular season's almost here. We'll be right back.
Spring college season is here and the warm weather is on its way. That means it's reversible season. Breakmark is giving away free reversibles for teams that order a bundle. With prices starting at just $75, it's the best way to have your team looking game ready this spring. And reorders get a 20% discount. Get started today at breakmark.com.
Welcome back to Deep Look. Centex was the main event last weekend. 2 separate tournaments for the men's and the women's divisions. Men's at Round Rock, women's on the UT campus. And your winners in the women's division, Northeastern, continuing their undefeated run through the 2023 season. And in the men's division, Colorado takes on Texas in the final. 14-13 universe point win for Colorado, as we get a little look-ahead preview of the South Central Regional Final, which should be a lot of fun. So, Keith, pretty interesting results, particularly at men's Centex. Thoughts on what we saw this weekend?
Well, we saw BYU's undefeated season come to an end as they took a loss to Texas. And I think that matters not so much in what tells us about BYU. I'm sure they're disappointed. They almost completed their run. They almost completed their run. They're not going to any more tournaments. So I'm sure they're disappointed by that. But I also think it shows Texas bona fides. I mean, if the final didn't enough, I think that Texas is pretty close to where Colorado's at, in that right on the edge of that contender sphere right now. That to me, some of the most interesting information coming out of this tournament is that Texas, who were so used to like being this kind of inconsistent team, they were able to deliver in back-to-back weekends. They go out, they win 6 games and lose only to Colorado by 1. They had some close results. They barely beat that BYU team, but obviously that's a good result. They barely beat Tufts as well, but they beat Carleton handily, which is a nice win for them. So Texas right now looking very for real. And even though they weren't the winner of the tournament, I do feel like that was the most important piece of information I gleaned from these Centex results.
Yeah, I mean, I was, when I saw the BYU schedule, I thought to myself, this is probably the hardest set of back-to-back-to-back games with very little break that they've had all season. They got Carleton, Wisconsin, and Texas all in a row. And they win the first 2 games fairly comfortably, 13-10 in both. And then they just lose to a Texas team that is as athletic as they are. I mean, I think that's a big thing, is that Texas is the sort of the size and athleticism to match up with BYU better than a lot of other teams. It still ends up being a very nice weekend for BYU. They're still one of the best teams in the country. But it is hard to just go back to back to back. Texas is playing its first game. They're fresh. And BYU at that point is going to be a little tired playing, having already played 90 straight minutes of Ultimate against good opponents. So I'm not surprised that was the game that they lost, from a structural perspective. Overall, I thought this tournament went over pretty smoothly, despite all the complaining about the weird format. I think largely it went according to expectations. I mean, how about Texas A&M making a nice little run to quarterfinals to get the win over Northwestern in Florida? That was kind of cool to see. Carleton whoops Wisconsin. And this gets me to big question. Is this Wisconsin team's national streak going to go to die here, Keith? They have the longest active national streak in the country. every year against the odds, they beat one of Carleton or Minnesota at regionals. But this feels like the weakest iteration of this Wisconsin team that we've seen in quite some time. It was 15-9 to Carleton. They've just not been in the same ballpark. Are they going to keep it going?
I mean, like you said, we've said all this before, have we not?
We have.
Really, it's like we're at one of those remakes, one of those horror movie remakes. It's going, like, wow, this feels like beat for beat the same story. Carleton really looks like they're clear head above Wisconsin and Minnesota. I mean, they might be better than both of these teams. And then you get to regionals, it's gross north central weather, and the Hodags are smiling, and everybody else is glum as they do what they need to do. It's so hard though, because you can't really see it outside of, we know it's happened before. You're still not even always sure why it happens. So it's hard to call for it again, when right now it looks like Minnesota and Carleton are the better teams. Just that's the way it's played out this season. I do think that Wisconsin's shown that they have the talent and that they are a nationals quality team, but that's going to be little solace if they're not a nationals attending team.
Yeah. Carleton's susceptible because they rely a lot on a couple of players.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, I think I'm going to pick against Wisconsin to keep the streak alive when the time comes. Anyhow, Colorado gets maybe their best win of the season. Is that fair to say? Over Texas?
Yeah, I think that would qualify. I mean, right now Texas is clearly the best team they've beaten. I mean, Pittsburgh's down, Brown's down. So yeah, I think that's their best win. I mean, right now, Carleton and Pitt, who they've beaten, are their next best wins. So yeah, clearly Texas, the only top 10 team they've beaten.
Yeah, it's interesting. This Mama Bird team, so much hype coming into the season, and if they'd gone undefeated at Centex, I would have felt a little better. But they lose to BYU. I mean, they've lost close in pretty much all of their big games this year. And that's a concern if you're thinking about this team as a national championship contender. I mean, I just don't think they've showed that. I mean, I think a 14-13 Texas win over Texas is good, but it's not earth-shattering.
Are they like, given those results, it's kind of hard to really, outside of like going back to your priors, it's a little hard just on resume to mark them as a contender right now.
I completely agree. But I mean, I think that the thing is, it's like they lose by 2 to UNC. They lose by 1 to Vermont. They've been close in these games. A 2-goal loss to UNC. Like, now, to be fair, that same UNC team then went on to lose to UMass. So it's not, they haven't even played UMass. I don't know. I agree. I don't think we've seen it. It's going to be real hard to pick them.
I mean, I was the game that they played against Texas, they looked like the stronger team until the end. I mean, they were up 12-9. And a lot of what felt like it was keeping Texas in the game were just kind of like Colorado mistakes, short fields that they were giving up. And then all of a sudden, Texas starts getting blocks and turns things around a little bit and tightens the game up. I think they also were playing without Chambers at that point as well. So, yeah, I'm a little worried about Colorado's head game more than where their mental game is at, more than I think their on-field game.
I mean, they definitely have the talent on the roster to compete. There's no question about that.
And the results show that.
Yeah. Danny Landisman, Calvin Stoughton. I mean, those two guys together could just win them a game against just about anybody. So this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the rematch of those two teams at regionals. Over in the women's division, Northeastern cruising through to a win, an undefeated win, and they defeat Colorado State in the final 15-7. I mean, did this team even play a single competitive game the whole weekend?
They beat Colorado State 13-11
Yeah.
in pool
That was
play.
a little
That was the
closer
only close one.
Yep. And Virginia goes undefeated in pool play, but loses to Colorado State in the semifinals, which I gotta say is a little surprising to me.
Yeah,
especially because they were dominating their way to that point. I feel like maybe a little bit of a look ahead to the final, like thinking about the Northeastern game before it had already started. I don't know. I don't want to take away from Colorado State. They also had a good weekend. Their only losses came to Northeastern. But I do think it's a little surprising.
It's definitely surprising. Colorado State was a team I was a bit hyped on in the preseason, but they had been a little disappointing in their debut this year. And this was a big step forward for them. So I don't think that they are like a team to be overlooked or anything, but I would expect Virginia to be focused at that juncture and to be able to take care of business in that game. And coming down with a loss is a bad look for them. Obviously strong for Colorado State, and I'm sure Northeastern's actually. I would not be surprised if Northeastern was a little disappointed. They probably wanted a rematch with Virginia after playing them at Commonwealth Cup and having it be clear that it wasn't a full strength Virginia team. And Colorado State, they'd already played in the weekend. They'd already won that game, but they were probably a little bit disappointed to not get another shot at Virginia, but clearly happy to round out an undefeated regular season. And it wasn't like they were at just crappy tournaments, Yeah, they didn't get out to any of the big elite West Coast tournaments. I totally understand why that they weren't able to make that happen. But they played pretty much the best teams that they could play on the East Coast without going to Queen City tune-up. So
here's my question, Keith. Where does this team fit into the power rankings for you? Coming into the weekend, they were at 11. They basically haven't played any of the teams in the top 10.
Right.
So, at 12 behind them was Virginia. So do you move them up past an Oregon, a BYU, a Stanford? How high do you put them up in the rankings? And do you think they can beat those teams, or is that just, you're giving them credit for going undefeated?
I would put them right behind Stanford probably. So you're right where BYU probably is, which is roughly where not much of a boost from where they're at. I do think you give a little bit of credit for going undefeated. It's just a hard thing to do, game in and game out. Delivered a couple of clutch moments. You should be applauded for that, especially when they were facing other ranked teams. This was not a just beating up on regional team performance for them.
Sure.
But yeah, they haven't played elite teams. They haven't played the teams that are in championship contention. And I think that could be a real challenge for them because it's going to be such a different level of competition. And two of those teams are in their damn region. So I'm sure that they wish they had a chance to play against somebody like that before, you don't want to have to go up against Vermont or Tufts in the game to go. And that's the first time you're seeing a team play at that level.
Oh God. There's no way they're going to end in the game to go against them though. I mean,
yeah,
they're going to get 3-4 bids up there.
Sure. But you never, it might not be the last game to go, but it might be a game to qualify or whatever. You don't want to end up in that situation. And you also don't want to end up in theory, they're probably going to see one of those teams at conferences. They're in the same conferences as Tufts, or they'll see them in pools at regionals. So they'll have a chance to get in that game. But all the credit for being undefeated, but I still would have them slotted in behind the elite teams that we've seen go up against teams of that caliber. Just
for some reference, in the USAU rankings, they have wins over the 15, 17, 18, 30 and 29. So, not that many top 25 level teams, but you got to give them credit. They beat Virginia 13-6. At one point, they saw Colorado State twice this weekend, the 18 right now in the rankings, beat them 13-11 and then 15-7. So, they have proven it against those teams. They are number 10 in the USAU algorithm right now.
There's not, I'm trying to find points of connectivity on their schedule and those top end teams. They beat Cal 13-8. Cal lost to Colorado by a similar score, 13-7. Lost to Oregon 14-5. Lost to Stanford 10-5. So that's about in the same range. I don't want to do Colorado State because they seem to be performing at a very different level from what they have. They're also worth noting Northeastern also beat Cal 15-6 eventually too. And then like Pitt, who's going to be at Northwest Challenge, we'll get a chance to get a sense of them, but they got blown out by Vermont when they played them. Northeastern hasn't actually gotten a chance to play Pitt, even though they've been at the same tournaments here. So yeah, I mean, you're looking for points of connectivity to try and get a sense of where Northeastern, how they might stack up against those elite teams. And like Cal, I think is really your only good point of comparison right now, although that could change in the coming weeks.
Any other results from the women's Centex that stand out to you, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, we talked briefly about Colorado State, but they'll be an interesting team in the mix here. It's probably too little, too late. Although they right now they are in bid contention, and so maybe they will just survive because there might not be a team to take it from them. Also helps that the next team out is also in the South Central, Texas, Dallas. So Kim, it's really going to behoove Binghamton, South Carolina if they have another game. I don't think Davis probably has the mobility to get up there, but Western Washington is another team to look at. Minnesota, if they have more games because they've only played 6 games. Those are probably the teams that could contend. And like, are those teams you're comfortable saying like they're going to take the bid from Colorado State? Don't know. And Colorado State, Texas has had some moments this year, but I think Colorado State clearly looks like they're the second team in the South Central. So if they hold the bid, they could be going back to nationals again. And I think that's a bit of a surprise for some people.
Yeah, and they will have earned it. To go out there and beat Virginia, like that's what put them in the bid range, basically. And you know what? They deserve a bid, I think, based on their resume right here. Pres Day a little shaky, but nice results at Centex.
They lost heads up to Texas, but I mean it was like the last game of Pres Day. I'm not sure that I'm buying that, but I wouldn't they're totally comfortable against Texas, even though Texas had a rough weekend here at Centex, which is not what you want to see from the home team, basically. From literally, I guess you're playing on their campus, and they went 1-6, including getting blown out by that same Virginia team. So
not good. Okay, so let's turn our attention now to the Northwest Challenge. And we got to start by talking about the format. The women's division format came out yesterday. It was a round robin format with teams getting 5 games. Now, I shouldn't really say round robin. It's more like match play because you weren't going to play all the teams at the tournament. And some players, particularly from Vermont and Colorado, were vocally unhappy about the way that this format laid out and made a big stink on social media. Initially, Washington basically said, thank you for the feedback. We'll look at, what we want to do for next year, but has subsequently completely changed the format and made it into a more standard pool and bracket play with a typical tournament final. So, Keith, is this legit? Like, do you like that they changed their mind from going from a more sort of match play-ish format to one with a standard bracket?
Yes, I do like that they changed this, and there was some discussion in our Discord about this. I mean, it was the topic of the day yesterday, along with one other topic. But it was something that people were talking about, and I made the argument that we've seen in the past tournaments go completely away from deciding a winner with no bracket play. So not a round robin format where you play everybody, so you can't lean on that result, but just teams playing 5, 6, 7 games or whatever, and whoever has the best record, you don't declare a winner. You just kind of say, okay, this team won or whatnot. And I think that that's unsatisfying for teams. And while games in bracket do not have any algorithmic value and like basically are totally arbitrarily more important, they still matter to players.
Yes.
Like, my team is obviously not playing for a national title this year, but like my players want to win a tournament and they're in the semis or the final of a tournament. It matters to them. And so it is important, I think, for teams to get those reps, to get the chance to get their players experience playing in a high pressure environment. Those are meaningful games. And so taking away those opportunities hurts. So I do think that making the change and being responsive to the teams is important, especially because it sounds like there was not communication that this was going to be the format prior to this. So you have teams that were traveling from great distances to play 5 games and not get them in the desirable way that they wanted to. The problem wasn't necessarily doing a match play format. It's that they didn't meet. If you're going to do the match play format, you have to do the other parts of it. So either you need to power match so that the teams at the top are getting the top level games that they're coming out to play, or you need to have some other sort of system in place to help make sure that teams are getting more games. You can't remove title contention, the value of having a bracket, remove access of top teams to other top teams, and shorten the number of games that they play. Like all 3 of those things, just like no team is going to be excited about that. So to be totally fair to tournament organizers, I have no idea what restrictions they're working under for schedule, for field availability, all that kind of stuff. They have BYU at this tournament. Like, how does that impact what their schedule is going to look like? Are there other teams that have schedule restrictions? Does the host team have schedule restrictions? I don't know. All those kinds of things could be factors, but that's supposed to be stuff that's worked out with the teams ahead of time and not on Twitter 4 days before the tournament.
Look, I think that a match play format is fine. I think that but you have to have some kind of plan for how you're going to have some kind of meaningful game at the end of it all. My favorite tournament of the year is warm up, straight up match play, and then all of the teams are ranked by their record and then via the algorithm to put them into a bracket, and then they play games in the bracket. Now, of course, that's a 3-day tournament, kind of a different thing. For this, you'd probably want to do something where you just do straight algorithm rankings and then pair each of the teams together for a final game. So you would have a final. The top 2 teams algorithmically after the 5 games of match play a 6th game that is the tournament final. Would that have solved all of the complaints? Maybe not, but at least there's some way for you to have access to, if you're Vermont, for instance, and you think you're going to be the best team there, you want a chance to play the second best team there, then you want something like that where you're going to get a chance to play those top teams. Otherwise, they got a UBC game in their original schedule. And then I think they had a couple other good games, Stanford and another team in the top 10. But then, 2 games that they were going to just completely destroy their opponent. And only 5 games, and like it's far. So I completely understand why they wouldn't want a bracket or a tournament setup like that, because you want to have the chance to go and face UBC and Colorado and like get almost all of your games against those top level opponents. So I don't really see anything wrong with a match play style event, but I agree with you, Keith. You got to communicate about it ahead of time. People shouldn't feel like they're getting surprised by the format.
Absolutely. And I'm surprised a little bit that they went so far into basically redoing the whole format rather than trying to add placement at the end, whether that's by like shortening other rounds. Especially they had a little extra flexibility because they have some games taking place on Friday with BYU, and not just BYU. They have Western and Victoria are playing each other even in the new schedule on Friday. And so now they've kind of got this weird mess where like they have 3 team pools on Saturday. They also have some games on Friday that I don't think are affecting bracket status. And then they also have just like random extra Sunday games, or Saturday games, excuse me. So like UVic plays just 3 extra games on Saturday, and are not in the pools at all. So I guess UVic has no chance of making the bracket or something. Yeah, so there's still like some weird oddities.
Maybe they can't play on Sunday. It would be my guess. They must not be able to.
I don't know what their travel situation is, but like those are both restrictions, but also because you do have 3 days of fields, you have like some other possibilities. So they ended up on a weird format, which I think is a little strange when it might have been simpler to just try and add, one final decisive game. Brackets are also generally restricting on field site availability because teams don't like to play buys and don't like to have buys in their brackets. So like you have to schedule a lot of your games simultaneously when teams are a little more accepting of pool play with buys on Saturday or Friday or whatnot. So yeah, tough situation, but it's just unfortunate that it got sprung on teams late. And then I also don't think that I can't say whether or not players from Vermont or Colorado or coaches or whatever were emailing the tournament directors too, in addition to going on Twitter.
Sure they were.
I don't necessarily think going on Twitter and like trying to shame them into doing it is a great look either. It's not a great way to build relationships or anything, but yeah, all in all, a messy situation. I'm glad that we arrived at something that feels a little more satisfactory for teams. Certainly a challenge for TDs and people who are planning on streaming the tournament. Some challenges too, but I think we're glad to have a bracket to work with as well.
Well, it's nice. I mean, it's nice from a viewership side. It's exciting to have a tournament final. I think any tournament should try to have a final, even if that ends up being, I have more leeway with early season tournaments where it's kind of just like whatever, let's just get games in. But it's nice to have a final and past Northwest challenges with a sort of match play-ish format. I'm pretty sure did have a game that at least felt like the final. Maybe that was by chance, but
yeah, I think 2014. I can't remember if it was 2014 or 2015 when we were out there for streaming, and like UBC, Ohio State, and Oregon, I think were like the three best teams, and they all played each other, but there was not. I don't think there was a de facto. There wasn't a final, and so you just kind of ended up labeling those games as like deciding which team was the best.
Yeah,
and I think Ohio
that's
State
the thing, right? So if you're Vermont, I think you would have been happier if you showed up and you got to play UBC, Carleton, and who's the next best team? Colorado. And those were three. You got 4 games against like the top 4 other seeds, and then 1 random game. But instead, now they're going to get 7 games probably. They're playing 4 on day 1. So look, they made the changes. I don't know how many teams wanted them, but here we are. So anyway, let's move on. Who's actually going to win this thing, Keith? UBC's the 1 seed, Carleton the 2, Vermont the 3, Colorado the 4, Stanford the 5, and then Oregon and Washington. And I think that really comprises kind of the top level. The next 5 teams, they're pretty solid, but it definitely drops off towards the bottom a little bit. Maybe doesn't have quite the strength all the way to the last team, but still very good tournament.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with you that I'm going to feel like there's a big gap between 7 and 8. Once you get to Washington, Pittsburgh, it feels like there's going to be a distinction between those teams that at the top and the bottom, which should make for some pretty compelling bracket play for most of these other teams, especially given the way that we've seen teams perform. UBC showed a little bit of inconsistency with that loss to Washington. I think that kind of opened the door, and it also showed you Washington's ceiling. I don't know that I would have bought that Washington was really in contention prior to what we saw at Stanford Invite, but seeing them beat a team like UBC is gonna change your perception a little bit. I think I'm high on Vermont. Colorado with the asterisk that they have their 2 best players this time around. That would definitely help. Makes you feel a little more confident if they're going to have Chloe Phillips and Stacey Gaskill, who are both on the roster for the tournament. So, take that for whatever it means. Does not necessarily mean they will be in attendance. I'm cooler on Carleton than the other 3 top seeds. So I feel like for me, it comes down to UBC, Vermont, and Colorado in some combination. I'm still figuring out exactly what that combination is, especially because the bracket, the format still seems a little wonky.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and make picks here. I'm taking, I don't know if they're going to end up meeting in semis. That's the problem, Keith.
Yeah, but none of us do. I think you're kind of...
I'm going to assume that it's going to be corrected so that the 1 would play the 4 seed in the semifinals, which means that I think UBC and Colorado will play in semis. I'm going to take UBC. We'll see. That's a really interesting game. I mean, I think that's basically the de facto final, but then you're going to have probably in Carleton versus Vermont in the other semi. I'm going to take Vermont in that one. So I'm saying it's going to be UBC versus Vermont in the final. And I'm calling on UBC to show us why that they shouldn't have lost that game back at Stanford Invite and win this tournament.
Interesting. Yeah, it is tough to pick because of the formatting. But even without that, I think I would have trouble deciding between those 3 teams that I mentioned. I think I'm going to go with Colorado and Vermont in the final, with the assumption that with the hope that they don't play each other in semifinals. So I'm playing with fire a little bit because it literally says that they do, if assuming that they win their games in pool play. And I'm gonna go with Colorado taking the win. I think. I'm really thinking about picking Vermont though.
It's just
It's tough. I'm gonna go with Colorado. I'm gonna stick with Colorado. I think that these teams are all very well matched though. I think that you're getting into coin flippy territory when you're talking about these three. These are also the same three teams that the subscribers have in consideration. The subscribers have Colorado, both going to the final and winning. But I think we have another situation with a subscriber tie. Maybe not actually. No, the subscribers have Vermont. No, they have UBC. Okay, UBC. Counted it out. So the subscribers have UBC and Colorado, with Colorado getting the win. So we have three different combinations of these three teams. Nobody wanted to go with Carlton between the subscribers, myself and the Charlie.
No, I'm not sold on this Carlton team. I mean, they're good, but they're not at the level of those other three teams.
Agreed.
They're a tier below them.
Possible for them to knock one off, but I would be surprised if they won this tournament.
All right, Keith. Well, how did we do last week on the picks?
So let's look at Centex from last week, where the picks were pretty similar, but there's just enough difference to make some differences in the points. In the women's division, everybody had Virginia and Northeastern in the final. Obviously, everybody missed on Colorado State, but Charlie had Virginia getting the win, while the subscribers and I both had Northeastern, so we get the extra points there.
What was I thinking?
I mean, I get it. Northeastern had played really close with a Virginia team that didn't have a full complement. I see how you got there. We weren't sure if Northeastern could pull off the undefeated year, but I said that they would, and it's a tough task to do still. Men's side, Colorado and Texas make the final. That's matches Charlie and the subscribers' picks. I had Carlton upsetting Texas to reach the final. Everybody had Colorado to win, which is what happened. So I lose the point there, which means that right now, final tally, Charlie has 39 and both subscribers and I have 38. So we're on his tail. And now that we have nobody has the same picks in Northwest Challenge. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be points to be had. Carlton could blow up all of our picks, but we'll see what happens. This is a spicy way to get down to the nitty gritty as we near the end of the regular season.
Not picking Northeastern, really, I just gave away my lead basically. Wow, it's coming down to the end here. I mean, it's really going to come down to getting the picks right here at Northwest Challenge and Easterns in a week. So, wow. Northwest Challenge live coverage coming your way if you are a full or plus subscriber to UltiWorld. So go over to ultiworld.com/subscribe, sign up and watch the games from Northwest Challenge. And we'll be having coverage at Easterns as well with commentary. So that's going to be a fun little capstone on the season. So looking forward to doing that. And Keith, it's pretty exciting. Anything you're watching in the bid watch this weekend closely?
I mean, I'm going to be watching Sudie Binghamton is literally like from across the field. So as close as close as possible in the women's division. This weekend specifically, Northwest Challenge, there's mostly like secondary connectivity aside from Western Washington. If Western Washington goes out and gets some key wins, they only have 6 games. So they do have a chance to play their way into the bid picture, I think. I think it's an outside shot, but I do think that it's possible. But the men's division, I think, as far as D1's concerned, I think we're mostly waiting till next weekend when we'll see where like South Carolina is going to be in the Easterns field. They're their last team in, but we know they won EQ, so they're going to be in attendance. It's going to come down to the end here. There's going to be some bids decided at Easterns in the men's division.
Make sure you tune in to our subscriber segment out the back. for some more mailbag questions and answers. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Deep Look. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week.